Hello, everybody. We're live. It's Heather here.
And it's Deb. Hello.
Hi. And Charlie's here. I'm going to be that dog mama right now.
Yep.
So it's okay. He's needing some love and snuggles right now. So this is Reluctantly Woo Woo, episode 14. And we're talking about, can energy healing help you experience inner peace? So I feel like that, we should all the time. I don't like shoulding, but especially talking about inner peace, just taking a deep breath and, right, just allowing the breath to flow through you. Right? In order to have inner peace, we have to have our breath flowing through us.
Gotta be able to breathe. That's step one.
Mm-hmm. Yes, step one. Yep. So, inner peace. How would you define inner peace, Deb? What's inner peace for you?
For me, it is certainly the ability to always reconnect with kind of this idea that things are always working out for me. So that's my anchor personally in it. When I feel like I'm getting into a little low space or something's got me kind of a little twisted up, if I can breathing, that's one, right?
Yeah.
And then come back to that state of, everything's happening as it should. Everything's always working out for me. And sometimes you have to look for those lessons within it, but being able to return yourself back to that, for me, what feels like a calm state, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not feeling tense on the inside or overly worried about things that you cannot control. That's how would you define it?
Yeah. That's for me personally, inner peace is when it's you see this movies where the superhero is just walking through the war, right? And they're just unfazed, right? They know where they're going, they know what they're going to be doing, and all this stuff is going around them, but they're nope, I got a job to do. Right. And I'm here. It's to me, inner peace is that deep sense of knowing and that you're not affected by external circumstances.
Right.
It doesn't mean that there isn't stuff that's happening, but it means that it doesn't knock you off your course.
Just outside of your house are making extreme noises that are annoying you.
Right. That is inner peace. When you can just be okay. I love the image of in Forrest Gump when Lieutenant Dan, right, goes and meets Forrest on the shrimp boat, right? And Lieutenant Dan's gonna have this fight with God, and they just show him sitting on top of the sail or whatever, and he's show me everything you got, and then the next scene you think you're oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? Is Lieutenant Dan gonna die? But then the next thing you see is just him in the water, doing a backstroke and just so at peace. It's he finally made his peace. And so I think overall I want to put this up because I love this this thought about what inner peace is that it's when you have access to a more resourceful, creative version of yourself, right? When you're in the flow, when you feel connected and unblocked. And most people walk around never feeling resourceful, right? They're focused on their problem instead of the solution. Mm-hmm. They're focused on all the things that are wrong instead of all the things that are right, right? Where inner peace is just like you said, good, we got it. It sucks right now, and I can say that it sucks, and it's okay that it sucks, but I'm not shaken by it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is a hard place for a lot of us to get to.
Absolutely. And I will say, even when you've done a lot of the work, sometimes you fall into the lacking inner peace space. Mm-hmm. For me, it's being able to bring yourself back to that, right? It's not about feeling like everything's always perfect. That's because it's not. It's not going to be. It's just having the tools and the resources to quickly move through that. I think sometimes, there are things that will go on in your life that might really be heavy, but can you carry them with a knowing that in the end, this is all going to be okay. You will figure it out a way,
Yeah. I will say, I know for me, I've said this 1,000 times, I will continue to say this. When I have sugar in my life and when I'm not doing consistent breath work, that's when I have zero inner peace.
Yeah.
But, I've been the past 2 weeks, gone through a breakup and my heart is very sad and it hurts, but I'm still shitting sprinkles, so to speak. Like I'm good. And I'm like, why is that? And because it's not like I love the guy for sure. I don't have sugar. That's like sugar just suppresses everything for me and it creates such inner turmoil. And that doesn't allow me to be in a resourceful state.
Right. And I think everybody's, vice in that, I guess, sense is going to be different, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that sugar, I don't eat a lot of sugar, but I also don't have to avoid it in the way that you do. It doesn't impact me the same way. I notice for me, one of my things is alcohol, which I have gone back.
Which turns into sugar.
True. But I've gone back and forth with cutting it completely out of my life. And then sometimes being like, I can have one glass and be okay. But for me, I know that when I'm in those low points, it's not a good choice for me. It's not going to help lift me out of it.
Right.
So I think everybody has to tune into that piece of it for sure. What you're putting into your body is going to exacerbate those
everything.
If it's something that negatively affects you when you're in a good state, it's going to negatively affect you even greater when you're already in a low state. So I think. And maybe how that relates back to inner peace is the knowing what's within your control. That's learning about yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Like we're constantly having to learn about ourselves and how we are uniquely made up and what uniquely impacts us, because it's not going to be the same. I mean, you and I have a lot of similar beliefs, but at the same time, different things are going to work well for us. Different things are going to affect us in adverse ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to pat myself on my back and say this. I'm so proud of myself because last Friday night, like I said, going through this breakup, I had my period last week. And on Friday, one of my girlfriends invited me over to come watch a movie. And I was like, and I'm like, I think I'm going to go pick up some Jenny's on the way, which is this ice cream place. And I don't eat it. They have a couple of non-dairy ice creams too. And they have this chocolate truffle one that's, oh my gosh, so good. And I was like, I'm going to pick up some ice cream because 1, I just had a breakup. 2, I got my period. So I deserve it. Right. And, she's like, yeah. And then as I started thinking about it, I was like, you know what I really deserve is to feel great. And what I really want is to feel great. And that's not going to help my state. So I was like, no ice cream. And it wasn't like I'm like depriving myself. What?
It takes the fun out of the choice. Right. When your initial thing is, I deserve this treat. And then all of a sudden you're like, ooh, that's going to make me feel worse. You truly can no longer want it. It is not that you're like, oh, I'm going to be strict. You're like, I don't want that.
Yeah. And it's good. Yeah. So let's talk about what inner peace looks like for people, because like you said, it is going to be different, but I think there's some telltale signs of what inner peace looks like for a lot of people. I think the easiest one is that you have less story making. Like you're not creating all of these like, oh my gosh, and then he did this, and then she said this, and then this is going to happen. And it's just, you just have this quiet mind.
Yeah. You're not not being a drama seeker. Right?
Yes.
Because it's easy to recognize it in other people. Like if you are wondering, what does it look like when I see inner peace in another person? When you have the people that are constantly like, he did this to me, he did that, blah, blah, blah. They're probably not walking around with a lot of inner peace. So do you want to be that person?
Yeah. And I love, my favorite thing, one of my favorite tools of Zara's conscious level tools, for helping with inner peace is Byron Katie's book, Loving What Is. Hands down, I will recommend it to everybody. Like if you want to have inner peace and are not in a place where you're ready to do energy work, like that is some of the best work around. And it's so simple, right? But just like it's like, oh, well, he didn't call me back, right? Because women and guys do this too, actually. But, it's like, oh, well, he didn't call me back. And so it means that. I was like, well, is it true that it means that? Well, no, you don't know that. Okay.
Right.
And it's like, then, who do you become when you believe that thought? And when we take the time to really look at who we're becoming, it's like, oh, crap. And it's like, if you didn't have that thought, who would you be? Right? Because the only information that is like, he didn't call you back. That's it. Everything else is just these crazy stories of what ifs in your head, right? So when you're experiencing inner peace, right, you're not story making. Right? You have a more quiet mind. You can just breathe and let things flow through you. So what's another sign of inner peace?
Of inner peace? I would say, I mean, it's easy to point out what's not inner peace, I guess. But the idea of people that dwell a lot on the past, right? Or if you made a little mistake at work, or you screwed something up, if you're going to sit and ruminate on that and blame yourself, and that's not really self-serving. So I think someone who has inner peace can say, yep, you know what? I screwed that up. I'm going to own what I did wrong. I'm going to take the lesson, and now I'm moving on.
Yeah. And there's a really big distinction between, a lot of people go into like judge space of like, what's wrong with me? How could I be so stupid to do this? I can't forgive myself. I can't let this go. Right. And that's a judge. Like it's this part of you that just creates this negative energy, right? That just keeps you like twirling in it. And a lot of people are like, yeah, but if I don't have that, then I'm never going to improve. Which is such complete BS, right? Because when you take away the judge and you just allow discernment to be there and say, okay, this happened, right? It's not the result I wanted. Okay, and these are the things that we can do to fix it, okay? Without the judgment attached, then you can move forward so much faster because you're connected to that resourceful, creative part of you.
Right. I would say practice in any of those situations is always to think of your best friend or your child or someone that you care very much about. Would you berate them at that level if they made that mistake? You shouldn't do that to yourself.
Yeah. Right. Right. Again, we don't like shitting on people, but sometimes there are some shoulds. Like, just stop it. We'll have it.
And this, this is how you get to inner peace. There's a lot of shoulds. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And so even with letting the past be in the past, it's like, this thing happened, and what's the gift in this?
Yes.
Right? And I can look and see when, so many different things that happened in the past that at the time were so like life ending that I've considered killing myself over, literally. Right. And thankfully now I'm not in that space. Right. And I can look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that those things happened because they led me to here. And if that hadn't happened, then I wouldn't be here. And so, having that like ability to just say, okay, like that happened yesterday. That's not today. Right? Because all we're living in is right now.
Yeah. And I would say the inner peace also comes when you no longer identify with those as who you are, right? If those things in your past they're just in your past. They're just things. They mean nothing about who you are today.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Identity is huge, huge, huge. Yeah. And so then once you let the past be in the past, then when you're experiencing inner peace, you're able to let the future take care of itself and let go of what you can't control.
That's huge.
Right?
So much easier said than done. I think, that one, I struggle sometimes with how I would prescribe that to other people because it's become something that's a somewhat easy practice for me now. Who wrote that book, Letting Go? Do you know who the author of that is?
Yeah, David Hawkins. It's phenomenal. It's definitely one of the best books.
That is a fantastic book. And I don't know, can we link to it? I know we can link to it when we post it on Instagram for sure. But I keep a copy of that like a Bible by my book because there's literally a chapter for almost any instance in your life. Yeah. And the letting go is, that's a big key to inner peace. Is just let it go. It just, especially if you have zero control over it, right? What's that little flow chart? Like, can I change it? Yes. Why worry? Can I change it? No. Why worry? Right? Like, yeah.
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 Yeah. And that's something that I see probably one of the biggest things when I'm trying to think if it's both male and female, my male and female clients. Like, it's not just like oh, women are so controlling. I see it in men as well. Right. And the thing is that we want to be able to control because we want certainty. Right? Most people are so connected to having certainty. I want to know, I want to know, I want to know. But just like one of my favorite movies is The Truman Show. And I love that because it's such a great example of, if you have certainty, like if you have 100% certainty, right, you're going to be bored. Right? Truman was like, I know that at this time, this person's going to cross the street and this is going to happen. And he's like, there's got to be more to this, right? Yeah. So allowing just life to unfold. It doesn't mean not having a plan. It doesn't mean that not having a direction. It just means like being okay with, I thought I had that off. It just means that you are able to say, okay, what happens. And I don't have to like micromanage every single person, right? So you're not anxiously thinking about all the bad things that might happen. You might, like, I had one time somebody give me, when I graduated culinary school, somebody gave me a knife for a gift, like for my graduation gift, which is like, give me a knife any day and I will be happy, over shoes any day. I'm not a woman who likes shoes. I want like kitchen gadgets. But she was like, no, you have to like promise me that you won't cut yourself with this knife, because I'll feel terrible if you cut yourself with this knife. I'll feel so bad. And I'm like, okay, first off, I just finished culinary school, so hopefully I know how to use a knife, right? Hopefully. And second off, if I cut myself, it's not because you gave me the knife. Like, you have no responsibility in this. Like, I would have been cutting something anyway, right? But she had this thing about always worrying about this is going to happen and this is going to happen in the future. Like, when you're at peace, right, you just let go and be okay. Yeah. You trust that no matter what happens, that you are the source of peace. It's not because this person was elected or this person was elected. It's not because like of these laws that are put into place, right? It's because you're the source of inner peace no matter what. And that you trust that whatever someone else is going to do, like that you, even if you think that it's a stupid thing, you're like, okay, I'm just going to let them be on their journey.
Yeah, exactly. Because truthfully, you can never control other people. I don't even care if it's your kids. You can control them.
Right.
They are their own beings, and they're going to have their own path, their own destiny. So yeah. I mean, obviously, we care about people. We don't want to just sit back and let people do something harmful to themselves. But ultimately, you don't have control over that.
Yeah. I'm just seeing in the comments here, Mary posted something about inner peace. I'll check that out later, Mary. Thank you for that. And the another thing about inner peace is you feel free. Like, freedom is such a big thing that I hear so many. They're like, I just want to feel free. It's like, what do you want to feel free of? And it's like, I want to feel free of worry and anxiety and guilt and shame. Okay, those are like the four. I was thinking about this the other day. I need to make an acronym, like WAGs, right? Worry, anxiety, guilt, and shame, right? When you can, worry is thinking about something that might not happen. Anxiety too. I don't know if you've ever heard this. Like, people talk about like being nervous or having anxiety, and physiologically the same things happen in your body when you're excited than when you're anxious.
Yeah, right? I have heard that. If you you can choose to label. I mean, I know that's probably oversimplifying. I've never experienced anxiety disorder, so I don't want to, negate anybody that experiences that. But I know for me, those mildly anxious moments, if you label it as excitement, it feels completely different.
Yeah. Well, because of the expectation, right? If you label it as excitement, it's like, I expect that something good is going to happen. If you label it as anxious and nervous, there's anticipation of something bad is going to happen. So it's your mind is what creates your what happens in your body.
Yeah. And the other thing about worry, I've probably said this one before, but one of my favorite sayings, worrying is just praying for the things that you don't want.
Love that.
So when you're dwelling on, I don't want this to happen, I don't want this to happen, oh my gosh, this is going to be, you're basically inviting that thing to happen.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So the last, and again, we're never exhaustive because there's always lots of other things, but the last thing about inner peace is that you just have a knowing, like you're just so connected, right? That you just can trust everything is going to be okay, which kind of sums up everything else that we've just, been talking about. But, it's like, even though life throws you some crap, because hello 2020, I mean, that's this year for everybody. Like nobody has been unaffected by this. But there have been people who've been unaffected because they've chosen to not be affected. Okay? It's like, okay, these circumstances are happening and I'm going to choose peace.
Yeah, reframing some of these things as opportunities rather than losses.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So the question is, what we started off with is can energy healing help you experience inner peace? And so, we call this reluctantly woo-woo because, we talk about things that are out of the box, like not in mainstream. Yet these are things that have been around long before traditional things have been around. We call what's going on now with medicine, conventional medicine, traditional medicine. Traditional for what? It's been traditional for 100 years, right? Energy medicine has been around since the beginning of times. And you look at pyramids that are built, there's this series on Netflix that I watched that talked about pyramids, and it was so over my head at some points because it was unbelievable, the stuff that they knew without having all the technology that we knew. And the summer equinox point would hit this at just this right time and would cast the shadow and it would line up to this other, pyramid that was just over there. And it was just crazy. Where was I going with that? Oh, about the energy work.
Right. Was that? And people had those abilities, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. And so when we think about energy work, and we're going to specifically talk about the body code, which is a form of energy work that basically the idea is that there's 6 different imbalances in the body. It can be energetic, it can be nutrition and lifestyle, it could be pathogens, it could be misalignments. There's 6 different things. Well, there's 6 categories that then break down. Right? And when you can identify using, muscle testing and release that trapped emotion, it can help your body, right, to balance itself out and to create the space that you're looking for. Mm-hmm. And so when we feel if we feel worry, anxiety, guilt, and shame, right, not if we feel it. Feelings flow through us, right? Mm-hmm. But if we allow them to be our emotions, right, and then allow it to be our personality, then we're going to keep attracting more of that. Right? And so what the body code does is it just goes in and identifies what are the things that are creating those things to be stuck in there, and can we move them out? Right? Yeah. Sometimes it could be a lot of stuff, and sometimes it could be one little thing. Right? And so I know you've done work with people. One of the first things that I do when I work with people is clearing out their heart wall. Okay? And you've done work with people on their heart wall. What have you seen as far as people in thinking about inner peace once they've experienced a heart wall release?
I would say, for some of the reports that I get, it's always fun when people come back to you and they're like, oh my gosh, I finally found my voice creatively. Which I think all that relates to inner peace is that it's the coming back to your true authentic self, and these pieces of us that we had and have always had, but get muffled or stifled by culture, by our families, by the things, not in anybody necessarily meaning harm, but when we domesticate human beings, we squash all these, these natural intuitive abilities and our desire to be creative or whatever those things are that we express as uniquely us that maybe don't align with our parents or, how we were raised. I think that has been super cool, is to see people come back to oh my gosh, I didn't realize that how much I loved this thing that I used to do. or how they've broken through on something that they were trying to achieve, or feeling blocked, with work or money or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
It really kind of, it clears that crap away. And when you get to that true authentic self, and when you can get to that point of like, oh my gosh, this is just who I am, so sometimes there's certain characteristics about us that we've been shamed for, maybe. And when you come back to that idea of, this is just the person that I was meant to be, I don't need to carry the shame and the guilt and, all the anxiety around expressing that, then you come to that inner peace, right? You're not like carrying it, literally like a weight on your chest.
Yeah.
That people say they, no longer feel. And that will give you that light, peaceful feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like an armor. It's walking around in like one of those big old like armory things, and people are like, but I got to be protected. If I get rid of this and people are going to hurt me. And it's actually the opposite. When we're walking around, the more open-hearted you are, the less hurt you get.
I think everybody can relate to, regardless if you believe in this stuff or it's a little bit out there for you. We all have had that experience of an emotion feeling like a physical weight on our bodies, right? And we've had that sense of relief when it's gone. So that, and the more of this work you do, you can start to recognize how much of that you've been carrying around.
Yes. Yeah. I just had a session with a client earlier, and she'd wanted to work on something specific. Like she came with this, and I was like, well, let's have a conversation, because what I've learned is that typically what we come to, what we present with, is never what needs to be worked on, right? And as we got dug deeper and dug deeper, it became really clear that it's like, it was like, I want to work on clearing out these people out of my life, and but I was like, so she had made a statement about how, like, I want to just be able to walk around my house and just like chill and be chill. And I was like, oh, so you want to be able to experience peace within yourself, and no matter what these other people are doing, you're okay? And she's like, yeah. And that's like, getting rid of the heart wall gives us access to that. It can come back when we have traumatic experiences, right? But it gives us the access to that, to be able to do that. Yeah. And another thing within our energy is that we have, there's a lot of people call them chakras. And I know when I was growing up, when I first started learning, I heard the word chakras, I was like, oh, that's a bunch of voodoo Hindu stuff. And I am, was in my like super conservative Christian world. And I was like, no chakras, right? But what I learned is that if you look at the human body, there's energy systems that run along your spine, right? That start down at your pelvic bone and go all the way up to your top of your head, right? And they're just these basically little swirling discs of energy, right? That have their own glands and hormones and chemistries. It's all like your endocrine system, right? Your sexual, your digestion, your adrenals, your heart, your throat, your pineal, like it's all has to do with organs in the body. And so when those are off kilter, right, we are not going to have inner peace. Okay. Because they're just, if you imagine just like a river with like these different, areas of access to them, if they're clogged up, right, with because they store, especially your lower energy centers, your root, your sacral, or solar plexus, they store old stories, old childhood traumas and patterns in the body, right? If that stuff's stuck there, just like a river is dammed up, like the energy's not going to move, and you can't experience peace because your body literally is in turmoil with itself.
Right.
Right. And so when those can be balanced and get all those trapped emotions and trauma out of them, right, then you can be more present to life. But if you're struggling, like, a lot of times these people will say, like, they're like, I can't get the words out. Like, I can never say anything. Like, and they feel like everything just stops here. And they're so not at peace because they can't say anything. Well, their throat chakra, right, is just, oh my gosh, it's
that
just
one was always, I mean, we've told this story many times before, but that one was one that would consistently get blocked for me. And actually, since we had worked together, now it's been a couple of years, wherever we had that one time I'd lost my voice, so I've told this story before, and then, you did work, released it. I haven't had any issues with that since I've really been like very conscientious about that. And if I reflect on it now, I have far less of a problem just speaking up for myself. Mm-hmm. In fact, not so woo-woo, but the DISC assessment, you've done the DISC assessment, right? Yeah, we've talked about this.
I'm certified in it. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe you can elaborate on it even a little bit more. But I redid my DISC assessment in the last few months. And I was stunned at how much it's actually changed, and where I'm all I and all S. Like I'm like basically 100 on both of those, which is a balance of introvert, extrovert. It's interesting. I have like very little C, the compliance one, but the D, the dominance, it used to be, I don't know, in the teens, maybe in the 20s. And now it's like in the 50s, which is just interesting to me, because I think I have started to, by clearing a lot of that, I'm like, okay, I am going to take charge when it's necessary, and I am going to speak up when it's necessary, and not shrink down and hold that in. And haven't lost my voice, haven't had those throat problems. So it's interesting,
Yeah. And I could say between, having my heart wall cleared, energy centers, the amount of work that I've done with body code work, and also I've done a lot of ayahuasca, which is a plant medicine. And that is like, body code work times 1,000. That just like clears things out. If you're willing to let it, to let it work. But and there have been times where I've been in ceremonies where I could literally like feel stuff. I'm in ceremonies where I can just, when I'm like, because you purge a lot of times when you're in ceremonies, because the stuff has to come out of your body in some way most of the time. And I remember one ceremony in particular, like I just dry heaved for hours, which I know most people listening would be like, that does not sound pleasant at all. And it doesn't when you're in it. I know. But like afterwards, when you're like, oh my gosh, that feels so good. It's just like having like food poisoning, and it doesn't feel good it coming out, but afterwards you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad it's out. Yeah. But I could literally just feel like almost see stuff coming out of my throat. And I have had other times where I purged once, and I remember this big like firework go off, and my solar plexus was just like just blown open in such a good way. And it was like, oh my gosh. And like, just for me to be able to like, people talk about that's like, make the saying like, oh, like own your power, connect back to your power. And I was always like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you mean by that. Now I totally get it, right? Because I feel like I'm totally standing in my power. But when I wasn't, I just thought it was ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. And that I love, like, is the beauty of this work, is because it does allow you, to connect back to yourself. And when you're so aligned with yourself, right, there is nothing outside of you that can shake you.
That is so true. Yeah. People criticizing you, people putting you down, people running into your space with their bad energy. Mm-hmm. I'm not infallible. Every once in a while I let that get to me, but then I know, what am I doing? Like I know that I want to be in a good state. I'm not going to let that bother me.
Yeah. Mine is driving. Like, I won't even say what I saw the other day, because it can be controversial. So I'm going to leave that alone. But like, part of it was that they were driving in the left-hand lane, not passing anybody.
Oh, that is such a problem here in Arizona. And I get furious about that one too, because I'm like, in Maine, where I learned how to drive, there's all these signs on the side of the road. Keep right except to pass.
I know.
I know. Arizona, trust me.
Oh, no one does that here in North Carolina either, and it drives me bonkers. I mean, in New Jersey, it's like illegal to drive in the left lane unless you're passing. I'm like, gosh. And so that's where that one, and like two people park, like an Uber driver comes to pick somebody up, and they'll park right at the corner, right? So if somebody's trying to turn out of the street, you can't see because the car is right there. And I'm like, oh gosh, you're gonna get somebody killed, and it drives me nuts. Yeah. And that's where my inner peace goes out the door.
I don't know. Do we actually have the remedy for driving peacefully? I notice I actually laugh at myself sometimes when I start to get like fired up. Every once in a while I'll stay in that space for too long, and then sometimes I'm like, what am I doing? Like this person is not intentionally trying to piss me off with their driving. They're just living in their own world.
Right. And that's where going back to the Byron Katie stuff of like, okay, you know, they're doing this to me. Okay, is it true that they're doing it to you? Because they don't even know you exist. Like, clearly, they don't know anybody exists because they're driving slow in the left lane. Like, stop driving slow in the left lane. Gosh.
Can you put that across the bottom, the banner on our?
I will right now.
If you want to help others cultivate inner peace, stop driving in the left.
No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. But gosh, it drives me bonkers, man. Yeah. So clearly, like, you know, like we've both done a lot of energy work. We don't have this all together because there are definitely things that are triggers, right? That make you just like, oh my gosh, right? But it's you know, none of us are going to be walking on clouds and, you know, in that like enlightenment stage all the time. But does it, here's the thing, like the person can be driving in the left lane slow while doing other stupid things. And it like, how long is that going to bother you?
Right.
Like I remember seeing this person. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to text my family and be like, oh my gosh, you'll never believe what I just saw. I didn't remember until just now we were talking. Like it didn't impact me the rest of the day, right? And it's that ability, like you said before, it's the resiliency of like, okay, you can get knocked off, but like, where's your baseline?
Right.
Okay? When your baseline is inner peace, it's like you may get a little rattled, but then you're like, wait a minute. Like, no, everything's going to be okay. 2020 is going to be okay. It doesn't seem it. And I know for anybody, like I know that there's people watching or listening and people who have lost loved ones, who've lost jobs, lost finances. And I can say that having lost loved ones, having lost financial, you know, means, all that kind of stuff, like it will be okay. Right. Because you do have resources within you, right, to be able to grow from it. It just sucks at the time, and I get it. So I'm not trying to be insensitive, but there is a possibility to have inner peace with all of the things that are going on in the world.
Right.
And this week especially, I know a lot of people have been riled up and really frustrated this week.
It's going to go on for a couple more weeks, I think.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Right. But inner peace doesn't mean also that you're walking around with your head in the sand and like, I don't want to see any of this. Okay. Right. But you can be the observer. Like this is one of my clients. She's like, Heather, I've gotten so much mileage out of this, where we talk about just being the observer, just noticing, oh, that's what they're doing. You know, oh, he's saying this. Oh, that's his pattern. Right? Yeah. Instead of, oh my gosh, he did this to me. It's just like, oh, look at them. They're playing the role that they came down to play, and they're doing a really good job at it.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny because another one that you had said to me that always sticks with me. And when I get in these spirals of like, oh, this bad thing is blah, blah, blah. I'll literally hear you be like, well, what if this story is still unfolding?
I'm smart.
No, that's so smart. I said that. But I mean, and I'll specifically the example where that one, why it sticks out so much to me is because like when it particularly finished unfolding, I just had to freaking laugh because it was when I had just bought my new car, had the car for 3 or 4 months, got hit, long drama, eventually found out the car was totaled. All like the whole thing, so stupid. I was just like distraught about all of it. And you're like, what if it's still unfolding? In the end, I ended up with a better car, lower payments. And
right.
I mean, oh, okay. It was still unfolding where I was in like, can't believe my car is totaled. It's brand new. And I just got it. Well, I was all in a tizzy about it, you know, give it some time. And all of a sudden I'm like, actually my daughter and I were just driving the other day and she was like, I really like this car. I'm like, I love this car too. So now she gets to sit in the front. So she was excited that she gets to have her own temperature dial to make it the temperature she wants, which was a feature that I didn't have in the one that I had before. Right. I thought I did, and long story short, bought it from Carvana, hadn't fully researched my options, and tried to convince myself I was happy with this car that kind of lacked some of the things I wanted. Right. And then look at what happened.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great place to wrap up. You know, inner peace is like trusting that the story is still unfolding. Right? And that the ending is going to be a great one.
And what's the thing? It's going to be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.
It's not the end. Right. And if you're really struggling, right, there are resources, right? Energy work can be is.
It is. Great. Yeah. I will be an advocate forever because I've experienced it.
Yeah. And so, if you're struggling with something and really just can't seem to get past something, you feel like you're looping in something over and over and over again, we'd love to help you with it. And if you don't feel comfortable with us, ask us, and then we can refer you to somebody who can help, because the body code is such a great way of just extracting these little nuggets that are stuck inside of you that are just keeping you looping. And you don't need to loop. You don't at all. Like the piece is there. It's already there. You were born with the piece. There's just some crap that's covering everything up. Right?
Yeah.
And so let's get rid of that crap so that you can experience that peace. So, reach out to us. I mean, I'm going to flash Deb's. You can find Deb on Instagram at DMysticism. And then, so go to my website. It's heathere.com. And we would love to be able to help you out and help you to get to a place where you can release those emotions so you can feel peace and freedom and joy and love and all that stuff. So awesome. We will talk to y'all later. Let us know if this is helpful for you, what's been helpful, and what are the things that you do to cultivate inner peace. So have a great one.
Thank
Bye.
you.